Good afternoon, everyone. We are once again reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and we are on the chapter called Advice to Ishan. Ishan was one of Ramakrishna's devotees. We're on page 609 if you're following along in your own book. And at the top of the page, names and forms are nothing but the manifestations of the power of Prakriti. Sita said to Hanuman, "My child, in one form I am Sita, in another form I am Rama, in one form I am Indra, in another form I am Indrani, in one form I am Brahma, in another Brahmani, in one form I am Rudra, in another Rudrani. Whatever names and forms you see are nothing but the manifestations of the power of Chit Shakti. Everything is the power of Chit Shakti, even meditation, and he who meditates. As long as I feel that I am meditating, I am within the jurisdiction of Prakriti." To M. Try to assimilate what I have said. One should hear what the Vedas and the Puranas say and carry it out in life. To the Pundit, it is good to live in the company of holy men now and then. The disease of worldliness has become chronic in man. It is mitigated to a great extent in holy company. I and mine, that is ignorance. True knowledge makes one feel, "O God, you alone do everything. You alone are my own. And to you alone belong houses, buildings, family, relatives, friends, the whole world. I am yours." But ignorance makes us ones feel, "I'm doing everything. I am the doer. House, buildings, family, children, friends, and property are all mine." Once a teacher was explaining all this to a disciple. He said, "God alone and no one else is your own." The disciple said, "But, revered sir, my mother, my wife, and my other relatives take very good care of me. They see nothing but darkness when I am not present. How much they love me." The teacher said, "There you are mistaken. I shall show you presently that nobody is your own. Take these few pills with you. When you go home, swallow them and lie down in bed. People will think that you are dead, but you will remain conscious of the outside world and will see and hear everything. Then I shall visit your home." The disciple followed the instructions. He swallowed the pills and lay down as if unconscious in his bed. His mother, wife, and other relatives began to cry. Just then the teacher came in the guise of a physician, and said to them, "Here's a medicine for him. It will bring him back to life. But I must tell you one thing. This medicine must first be taken by one of his relatives and then given to him. But the relative who takes it first will die. I see his mother, his wife, and others here. Certainly one of you will volunteer to take the medicine. Then the young man will come back to life." The disciple heard this. First, the physician called his mother, who was weeping and rolling on the ground in grief. He said to her, "Mother, you don't need to weep any more. Take this medicine, and your son will come to life, but you will die." The mother took the medicine in her hand and began to think. After much reflection, she said to the physician, with tears in her eyes, "My child, I have a few more children. I have to think about them too. I'm wondering what will happen to them if I die. Who will feed them and look after them? The physician next called the wife and handed the medicine to her. She had been weeping bitterly also. With the medicine in her hand, she began to reflect. She had heard that she would die from the effect of the medicine. At last, with tears in her eyes, she said, "He has met his fate. If I die, what will happen to my young children? Who will keep them alive? How can I take this medicine?" In the meantime, the disciple had got over the effect of the pills. He was now convinced that nobody was really his own. He jumped out of bed and left the place with his teacher. The Guru said to him, "There is only one whom you may call your own, and that is God. Therefore, a man should act in such a way that he may have bhakti for the lotus feet of God and love God as his very own. You see this world around you? It exists for you only for a few days. There's nothing to it." Pundit smiling. "Revered sir, I feel a spirit of total renunciation when I am here. I feel like going away, giving up the world." Master: "Oh, no. Why should you give up? Give up mentally. Live unattached in the world." Surendra wanted to spend the night here occasionally. He brought a bed and even spent a day or two here. Then his wife said to him, "You may go anywhere you like during the daytime, but at night you must not leave home." What could poor Surendra do? Now he has no way of spending the night away from home. What will you achieve by mere reasoning? Be restless for God and learn to love him. Reason, mere intellectual knowledge, is like a man who can only go so far as the outer court of the house. But bhakti, love of God, is like a woman who goes into the inner court. One must take up a definite attitude towards God. Then alone can one realize him. Rishis like Sanaka cherished the attitude of Shanta, that's the peaceful attitude. Hanuman, the attitude of a servant. The cowherd boys of Vrindavan, like Sri Rama and Shudanma, the attitude of a friend. Jashoda, the attitude of a mother. And Radha, the attitude of a sweetheart. O God, thou art the Lord, and I am thy servant. That is the servant's attitude, a very good one for aspirants. Pundit: Yes, sir. The pundit from Sinti left. Does everyone know a pundit is a religious scholar who comes and explains the scriptures to you? It was dusk. The twilight hung over the Panchavati, the temples and the river. Evening worship began in the different temples, accompanied by the sound of bells, gongs, and conch shells. Sri Ramakrishna bowed before the pictures of the deities in his room. He was sitting on the small couch in an abstracted mood. A few devotees were on the floor. There was silence in the room. An hour passed. Ishan and Kishori entered and sat down on the floor after saluting Sri Ramakrishna. Ishan was a great ritualist. He was devoted to the performance of the various rites and ceremonies prescribed by the scriptures. The master opened the conversation. Master, can one attain knowledge of God by merely repeating the word God? There are two indications of such knowledge. First, longing, that is to say, love for God. You may indulge in reasoning or discussion, but if you feel no longing or love, it is all futile. Second, the awakening of the Kundalini. As long as the Kundalini remains asleep, you have not attained knowledge of God. You may be spending hours poring over books or discussing philosophy, but if you have no inner restlessness for God, you have no knowledge of him. When the Kundalini is awakened, one attains bhava, bhakti, prema, and so on. Bhava is extreme love for God, bhakti is love of God, and prema is the ultimate love of God. The path of karma is very difficult. And what he's talking about with the path of karma here is religious rites and rituals. Though through it one obtains some powers, I mean occult powers. Ishan, let me go and see Hazra. Sri Ramakrishna sat in silence. After a while, Ishan returned to the room, accompanied by Hazra. Now, these are all people who were in Dakshineswar, were in close contact with Ramakrishna while he lived there. The master was still silent. A few moments later, Hazra whispered to Ishan, "Let's leave him alone. Perhaps he will meditate now." Both left the room. Sri Ramakrishna was still silent. In a few moments, the devotees noticed that he was really meditating. Then he performed japa. He placed his right hand on his head, then his forehead, then on his throat, then on his heart, and last of all on his navel. Was it meditation on the primordial energy in the 6 centers of the body? Ishan and Hazra had gone to the Kali temple. Sri Ramakrishna was absorbed in meditation. Meanwhile, Adhar had arrived. It was about 7:30. A little later, the master went to the Kali temple. He looked at the image, took some sacred flowers from the feet of the mother, and placed them on his head. He prostrated himself before the mother and went round the image. He waved the chamra, that's the fan that we wave at Arati that you see. He appeared ecstatic with divine fervor. Coming out, he found Ishan performing the sandhya with the koshakushi. Master to Ishan, "What? You are still here? Are you still performing the sandhya? Listen to a song." "Why should I go to Ganga or Gaya, to Kashi, Kanchi, or Papas, so long as I can breathe my last with Kali's name upon my lips? What need of rituals has a man? What need of devotions any more, if he repeats the mother's name at the 3 holy hours? Rituals may pursue him close, but never can they overtake him. Charity, vows, and giving of gifts do not appeal to Madan's mind. The blissful mother's lotus feet are his whole prayer and sacrifice." How long must a man continue the sandhya? As long as he has not developed love for the lotus feet of God, as long as he does not shed tears, and his hair does not stand on end when he repeats God's name. "I bow my head," says Prasad, "before desire and liberation, knowing the secret that Kali is one with the highest Brahman. I have discarded once for all both dharma and adharma." When the fruit grows, when the fruit grows, the flower drops off. When one has developed love of God and has beheld him, then one gives up the sandhya and other rites. When the young daughter-in-law is with child, the mother-in-law reduces her activities. When she has been pregnant for 9 months, she is not allowed to perform any household duty. After the birth of her child, she only carries the child on her arm and nurses it. She has no other duty. After the attainment of God, the sandhya and other rites are given up. You cannot achieve anything by moving at such a slow pace. You need stern renunciation. Can you achieve anything by counting 15 months as a year? You seem to have no strength, no grit. You're as mushy as flattened rice soaked in milk. Be up and doing. Gird your loins. I don't like that song. Brother, joyfully cling to God, this striving. Someday you may attain him. He really likes you to get up and do it rather than think about it. I don't care for that line. Thus striving, someday you may attain him. You need stern renunciation. I say the same thing to Hazra. You ask me why you don't feel stern renunciation? There is a reason for it. You have desires and tendencies within you. The same is true of Hazra. In our part of the country, I have seen peasants bringing water into their paddy fields. The fields have low ridges on all sides to prevent the water from leaking out. But these are made of mud and often have holes here and there. The peasants work themselves to death to bring the water, which, however, leaks out through the holes. Desires are like the holes. You practice japa and austerities, no doubt, but they will leak out through the holes of your desires. Are there any questions about any of this that we're reading? Okay. They catch fish with a bamboo trap. The bamboo is naturally straight, but why is it bent in the trap? In order to catch the fish. Desires are the fish. Therefore, the mind is bent down toward the world. If there are no desires, the mind naturally looks up towards God. Do you know what it is like? It is like the needles of a balance on account of the weight of lust and greed. The two needles are not in line. It is lust and greed that make a man stray from the path of yoga. Haven't you noticed the flame of a candle? The slightest wind makes it waver. The state of yoga is like the candle flame in a windless place. The mind is dispersed. Part of it has gone to Dhaka, part to Delhi, and another part to Cooch Behar. The mind is to be gathered in. It must be concentrated on one object. If you want 16 annas worth of cloth, then you have to pay the merchant the full 16 annas. Yoga is not possible if there is the slightest obstacle. If there is a tiny break in the telegraph wire, then the news cannot be transmitted. Now, when we're talking about yoga here, we're talking about union with God, not asanas. Okay. You are no doubt in the world. What if you are? You must surrender the fruit of your action to God. You must not seek any result for yourself. But mark one thing. The desire for bhakti, love of God, cannot be called a desire. You may desire bhakti and pray for it. Practice the tamas of bhakti and force your mind upon the Divine Mother. This bitterly contested suit between the mother and her son, what sport it is, says Ram Prasad. I shall not cease tormenting thee till thou thyself shall yield the fight and take me in thine arms at last. That's the tamas of bhakti, forcing your desires, forcing your desires upon the Lord, being willing to fight for them. Trilokya once remarked, as I was born into the family, I have a share in the estate. God is your own mother. Is she a stepmother? Is it an artificial relationship? If you cannot force your demand on her, then on whom can you force it? Say to her, Mother, am I thine 8-month child with red eyes? Thy red eyes cannot frighten me. A deed of gift I hold in my heart, attested by thy husband Shiva. I shall sue thee if I must, and with a single point shall win. God is your own mother. Enforce your demand. If you are a part of a thing, you feel its attraction. Because of the element of the Divine Mother in me, I feel attracted to her. A true Shoiva has some of the characteristics of Shiva. He has in him some of the elements of Shiva. He is a true Vaishnava, is endowed with some of the elements of Narayana. Nowadays, you don't have to attend to worldly duties. Spend a few days thinking of God. You have seen that there's nothing in the world. The Master sang again, "Remember this, O mind, nobody is your own. Vain is your wandering in this world, trapped in the subtle snare of Maya as you are. Do not forget the Mother's name. Only a day or two men honor you on earth as Lord and Master. All too soon this form, so honored now, must needs be cast away, when death, the Master, seizes you. Even your beloved wife, for whom, while yet you live, you fret yourself almost to death, will not go with you then. She too will say farewell, and shun your corpse as an evil thing." Continuing, the Master said, "What are these things you busy yourself with? This arbitration and leadership. I hear that you settle people's quarrels, and that they make you the arbiter. You have been doing this kind of work a long time. Let those who care for such things do them. Now devote your mind more and more to the lotus feet of God. The saying goes, Ravana died in Lanka, and Bahula wept bitterly for him. The footnote on this one is, Ravana and Bahula were two persons, totally unrelated to each other, having lived far apart in time and place. Shambhu too said, I shall build hospitals and dispensaries. He was a devotee of God, so I had said to him, will you ask God for the hospitals and dispensaries when you see him? I think when he's talking about when Ravana died in Lanka and Bahula wept bitterly, it is indicative of the way we often see the news. And these things are not happening to us, they're happening somewhere in the world to people we have never met, we have never encountered. And yes, there's a certain amount, there's empathy and there's compassion, but to weep bitterly for that is also looking for things that take your mind off God. We look for things of the world to keep us attached. Keshav Sen asked me, why do I not see God? I said, you do not see God because you busy yourself with such things as name and fame and scholarship. The mother does not come to the child as long as it sucks its toy, a red toy. But then after a few moments, it throws the toy away and cries. Then the mother takes down the rice pot from the hearth and comes running to the child. You are engaged in arbitration. The Divine Mother says to herself, my child over there is now busy arbitrating and is very happy. Let him be. In the meantime, Ishan had been holding Sri Ramakrishna's feet. He said humbly, it is not my will that I should do these things. Master, I know it. This is the Divine Mother's play, her Leela. It is the will of the great enchantress that many should remain entangled in the world. Do you know what it is like? How many are the boats, O mind, that float on the ocean of this world? How many are those that sink? Again, out of 100,000 kites, at best 1 or 2 break free, and thou dost laugh and clap thy hands, O mother, watching them. Only 1 or 2 in 100,000 get liberation. The rest are entangled through the will of the Divine Mother. Haven't you seen the game of hide and seek? It is the granny's will that the game should continue. If all touch her and are released, then the playing comes to a stop. Therefore, it is not her will that all should touch her. You see, in big grain stores, the merchants keep rice in great heaps that touch the ceiling. Beside them are heaps of lentils. To protect the grain from the mice, the merchants leave trays of puffed rice and sweetened rice near it. The mice like the smell and the sweet taste of these, and so stay around the trays. They don't find the big heaps of grain. Similarly, men are deluded by lust and greed. They do not know where God is. Rama said to Narada, "Ask a boon of me." Narada said, "O Rama, is there anything I lack? What shall I ask of thee? But if thou must give me a boon, grant me that I may have selfless love for thy lotus feet, and that I may not be deluded by thy world-bewitching Maya." Rama said, "Narada, ask for something else." Narada again replied, "O Rama, I don't want anything else. Be gracious to me and see that I have pure love for thy lotus feet." I prayed to the Divine Mother, "O Mother, I don't want name and fame. I don't want the 8 occult powers. I don't want 100 occult powers, O Mother. I have no desire for creature comforts. Please, Mother, grant me a boon that I may have pure love for thy lotus feet." It is written in the Adhyatma Ramayana that Lakshmana asked Rama, "Rama, in how many forms and moods do you exist? How shall I be able to recognize you?" Rama said, "Brother, remember this. You may be certain that I exist wherever you find the manifestation of ecstatic love. That love makes one laugh and weep and sing and dance. If anyone has developed such love, you may know for certain that God himself is manifest there. Chaitanya Dev reached that state. The devotees listened spellbound to Sri Ramakrishna. His burning words entered their souls, spurring them along the path of renunciation. And we shall stop there today. This is going to continue. Any questions or comments about what we have read?
Add some of your own commentary to it.
What text are you reading?
I'm sorry?
What's the name of the text?
Is there a way you could add your own commentary to it?
The text that we're reading? The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. I've got two questions going at once. Just 1 second, Elizabeth.
Oh, sorry.
I've got one here. You were asking about what text we're reading? The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna that was written by Mahendranath Gupta as Ramakrishna was alive in Calcutta at Dakshineshwar. He wrote down exactly what was said when he was with Ramakrishna. So that's what we're reading. Okay? Now, Elizabeth?
I was asking if you had any impressions yourself on the section. Like any of your own impressions? I don't know. Do you have any commentary?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any commentary?
Not really. I find Ramakrishna says it very simply for my mind. He gives a lot of examples of how the basic message is to remember God and to try and realize God, to realize your own divinity, to realize your oneness. And he gives you example after example after example, but like, don't be like the mice who miss the big piles of rice. And are satisfied with the little sweets and things that they put out to distract you. Don't be overtaken by lust and greed. And when you think about what your desires are, it's lust for power, lust for fame, lust for women, lust for men, and gold. It's lust and gold. We want money, we want things. These are our distractions in life. These are the things that constantly creep into our minds and keep us from devoting our whole mind to God. Now, to me, that, I don't know, that may sound a little...
No, that was perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
When I read the gospel, that's what I hear with practically every page. And Ramakrishna has a great many devotees who come to him, and they all have different personalities, and they all manifest different aspects of humanity. I mean, he has Girish Ghosh, who's Girish Ghosh would come to him drunk and he would be abusive to him, and he was one of Ramakrishna's greatest devotees. He had other people who came and they practiced what looked like severe austerities, but their minds were somewhere else. So all of these teachings that he's doing, all of these stories that he tells, are to try and make it simpler for us to understand how to control our own mind and direct it to God.
How do you think about the part that he says about how it's the Divine Mother who frees us and who keeps us deluded?
I'm sorry.
He talks about how it's the Divine Mother who frees us, but it's also the Divine Mother who keeps us deluded. He says it's not, Ishan says it's not my will, and he says I know. What do you think about that? How do you deal with that?
We're getting a question, how do we think about it's the Divine Mother's will, and we are in some ways helpless, and we are in some ways not. What I think about it is, oh golly, a lot of karma goes into that, a lot of samskaras go into it. We're born in this body, and we do have tendencies from our past lives. We do have unfulfilled karma from past actions. As also Ramakrishna said, and the scriptures say, in order to get on the religious path and to make serious project, you need the grace of a guru. You should meet an enlightened soul who can show you the way. You need the grace of God by following the guru's instructions. And last of all, you need the grace of your own mind. And that is one that the grace of your own mind is the one that allows you to allows you to follow the Guru's instructions, and gives you that stern renunciation. And as they say, without the grace, you can have the grace of God, you can have the grace of a Guru. Without the grace of your own mind, you can be lost. And you think about, if you have met a true guru who can help you on the path, that's already been a certain amount of grace of God. And the grace of God that you will desire to follow the guru's instructions. You have to have the desire to follow those instructions and want that liberation. And that's where the grace of your own mind comes in. If you try to distract yourself from the goal, and there's so many things that the Divine Mother does put up so many distractions. Because, as you said, she wants the play to continue. This is our playground. This is our gymnasium. And they want us to continue here until we do get so tired of it. We just want to, so tired of it or so disillusioned by it that we want to escape it. That's the way I feel. I mean, think about it, as you said, the mother who puts her child to play with its toys. She puts her child down to play with toys, and she doesn't want to bother him as long as he's happy with them. But as soon as he's not happy with those toys and wants only her, then she comes running. So that's what I think about that. I don't know if there's any more comments. That I'm willing to hear them. John?
It sounds as if the grace of your mind is directed free will. It's a proper application of free will.
You could say that. You could say that, yes. Free will is... It's more of a Western concept because, for the most part, free will does not take in the concepts of samskaras, tendencies you are born with from your past lives, which you must recognize, and if they are not leading you towards God, then those are things that you try to change or try to tame. Doesn't take in the concept of karma, which has 3 different kinds of karma. Free will takes in the most common analogy for karma is the archer with the quiver on his back. He has arrows in the quiver that are not shot. He has an arrow in the bow, which he is about to shoot. And there is the arrow that he has already shot that has not reached the target. So, the arrow that has been shot, we call it parupta karma. It has to come to fruition, because you have shot that arrow. Now you can ameliorate the seriousness of the parupta karma through spiritual practices. You have a choice with the arrow that is in the bow and in your hand. That you could consider free will. You have the choice of whether you're going to continue to shoot the arrow or to stop. And you do not have to make new karma by putting out more arrows. So that's kind of the way I think of free will.
That's pretty much how I had limited it also. The notion of free will as paradox that most Western religions have was not what I was referring to.
Okay. I think you asked me what I feel about free will. That's what I feel.
I give you your free will to disagree with me.
Now, okay, so any more questions or comments? Tomorrow we are going to have Swami Harinamananda, who's our head. He's down in San Diego and basically taking care, he's the resident Swami in San Diego. All of these, Santa Barbara, San Diego, Trabuco, are all under the headship of Swami Sarvadevananda. But he's the resident in San Diego. And he will be giving a talk on service as worship, practical ways for serving the sacred in others. I think it's going to be quite interesting. Next Wednesday, we will continue with not Sri Ram, I keep doing that. Swami Ramakrishnananda, the Apostle to the South, at 5 o'clock. And next Saturday we will have the gospel reading. Yeah, we'll have a gospel reading of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Okay? Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Panamastu. Good to see you all. And enjoy the rest of summer solstice.